I used an app to get dinner with 5 strangers on a Wednesday night, and I didn't die. Hello, I'm your life coach, Jennifer Ho, and you're listening to And I Didn't Die, the podcast for quiet achievers, eldest daughters, and women who've always put others first. It's time to stop playing small, keeping quiet, and hiding. Your dream life is waiting on the other side of the scary actions you've been avoiding. Today, let's talk about making friends as an adult. It's something that comes up a lot in my coaching work with clients, and I see it a lot on social media too. Like, how do I make friends as an adult? And sometimes it's like, I wish I had a best friend. Other times it's, I don't know how to meet new people now that I work remotely and never go anywhere. And often there's always the lurking fear of, am I the only one who has a hard time with this? There's the loneliness of, is it weird that I need help with this? And there's that anxiety around, what if no one else wants to be friends with me? Well, I'm here to remind you, you're not the only one. You're not weird for needing help, and there are definitely a ton of people who want to make new friends and all kinds of friendships. I have a whole friend theory and framework I always go back to, for my clients and for myself. It has helped me make friends all over the world, and lately it's been helping me make friends locally too. There's this meme where it's like, having a small circle is cool until your two friends are busy. I feel that, and my recent problem is that it's cool to have friends everywhere until you're the only one left in your city. And that's definitely a little more dramatic than my actual circumstance, but things have shifted in the past few years for sure. A friend I loved going on Costco runs with on the weekend moved away last year. A friend I would watch shows with every week has a toddler child to care for now. And a friend who went on walks and picnics with me is now in a committed relationship, and I have less time with her. As I found myself actually staying put at home instead of jet setting to another city each month and visiting friends wherever they were, I got lonely and I knew I needed more friends. And that's how I ended up at dinner with 5 strangers on a random Wednesday night. If you've been around since the Ask an Introvert podcast, so before the And I Didn't Die days, and way back in March 2023, episode 1 was called I Don't Want to Go Clubbing, But I Still Want Friends. And if you've listened to that one, then you know I had a whole framework about defining clearly for you what friendship looks like, playing to your strengths so you can show up as yourself, and managing your expectations as you go. But what I didn't do back then was share a really recent experience of me making friends. So now we're going to get into what it looks like when I take my own advice. So the very first thing, setting my intention. What kind of friends do I want to make? More specifically, what personal needs will these new friendships fulfill for me? Well, I know I want friends to go do stuff with, someone to try that new restaurant with, someone to go to a concert with, play pickleball with, or grab boba with on the weekend. These are friends who can be a part of my life, but don't necessarily have to be a soulmate bestie or match my every interest. Like if I want to go to So Far Sounds, those concerts that are held where you don't know who's playing, I want to have people to ask, to invite. So my intention this year boiled down to, I want local friends who are fun and easy to be around. Now, the second step, deciding how I want to show up for these friends. The main question is, how do I attract these kinds of friends? This is where it's important for me to play to my strengths. I'm definitely not an extrovert, so instead of going to large mixers or approaching strangers randomly out in the wild, I looked for smaller, niche events that are more introvert friendly. In the process, I found some local social clubs, hiking groups, weekly crafting circles, and finding all of these things and knowing that they existed really calmed the voice in my head that's like, oh, there's nothing ever going on in Sacramento. It's not like LA or Singapore. Oh my goodness, if I let that voice run rampant, I definitely would not be here recording this right now. So, Thankfully, I did find that I have a lot of options, and what I needed to do to complete this second step was to choose one thing and try it out. I know oftentimes when we have a lot of options, it's fun to weigh the options, and researching all the options feels productive, but it's not, because you're not going out there and taking real action towards your goals, real actions that are aligned with the intention that you want. And in my case, I want local friends who are fun and easy to be around. And for me, the decision I made was actually me succumbing to these ads that I was getting on Instagram for Time Left. It is an app where you pay for a ticket, and then they curate small group dinners with strangers for you. And all around the world, it's always on a Wednesday night. And I like this a lot because I was worried about fitting in with already existing groups. And in this case, because everyone goes in solo to meet strangers, to have dinner with just strangers, even if they've done another dinner before, they most likely won't be like, hey, I know you, or like show up already in a clique. So I thought that this would be helpful for me. The dinners are also capped at 6 to a table, and it's centered around food. That makes it really easy for me because I knew that no matter what kind of people I meet, at the end of the day, I'm still doing something I like, which is going out to eat. So basically, I made a decision that played to my strengths and brought me joy and fulfilled a curiosity I had from the ad that I kept seeing. Now on to step 3, managing my expectations. How was I going to show up not just at the dinner, but afterwards and for myself at every step of the way? I tell clients all the time, your people are out there, but they can't and won't be able to find you if you don't start being exactly who you want to see in the world. In action, that looks like staying curious throughout the process and making things easier for yourself where things might feel hard. One thing I know very well about myself is that I really take my time to open up to others. And how I condense this timeline is by keeping in mind how I act around my current good friends. And I have a reference for how I want to show up, because the version that I am with my good friends is how I want to show up at this dinner. And I also set a personal rule to follow up within 24 hours and ideally schedule the next hangout. So this sounds like a lot that I gotta do, but what I'm doing is taking a lot of steps at the beginning so that my brain kind of doesn't have more time to create more mind drama, and I can create these wins for myself, and that makes it feel easier. Now, at the dinner itself, I did not try to be the most fun or the most interesting to everyone. What I knew was in my control was that I can be friendly, curious, observant by my own standards. So I let myself say the sassy things that came up as everyone shared, and then I paid attention to see who laughed with me. I also looked out for people who asked questions that I was also curious about, or ones who asked even more interesting questions than I had. And that gave me signs for who I wanted to hang out more with. Note that I said people I want to hang out with. This is one of the ways I keep it light and fun. It's about who I would want to see again, and some of you might be hearing this and thinking, wait, isn't that a little bit like dating? Not a little bit, it's quite similar there. Whether you're making friends or dating, you're building relationships. The difference is in the details of your intentions, your needs, your level of reciprocity. But in terms of managing expectations, it's the same, because you cannot control other people, only yourself. Now, at times I was like, what if they don't want to see me again? But I knew it's important for me to try. And the scariest part of all of this was not like figuring out the activity to do, not even going to the dinner, but after the dinner is needing to follow up. This is where my brain drama really came up, But at the same time, that is a reminder for me of how important that is for me and how much it matters to me. Because usually the things I'm most resistant to are the things that I know I have to do, but I want them to go right so badly, it's scary to try. My brain was going, what if they only exchanged contact info with me because they felt bad for me? And then they never replied because they thought I was weird and annoying. And that can go on and on forever, but when I zoom out and I put my coach hat on, I see that eldest daughter part of me that wants to be in control. And I see how she actually sneakily showed up at every step of the way, not just during the follow-up, and that we did things anyway and we were still okay. Because, like, for example, before the dinner, she's actually showing up there too. She's like, what if I don't like anyone today? What if everyone is awkward? What if I hate the food? Those are all possibilities framed negatively. And framed negatively, of course, they're going to make us scared. And that fear is so human, but we don't have to let it stop us before we even start. So I try to reframe everything positively, or at least neutrally. I went into my first time left dinner repeating to myself, it might be possible to meet a new friend today, and at the least, I'm going to have a delicious meal. That part of me that wanted to be able to control it all and keep me safe, she was still scared. But we got her to a point where she's brave enough to do it anyway. That's the behind the scenes of my brain. Now, what actually went down at the dinner was that I had a really fun time at a fancy restaurant I probably wouldn't have gone to otherwise. I met 5 peeps, the conversation flowed, I made some sassy remarks, I had an amazing squid ink pasta, and in the end, I exchanged contact information with 2 really cool ladies. And for the follow-up, I sent them one of my favorite memes from @punk_history on Instagram to continue the conversation we were having, and the next day we were all talking about hanging out again. Now here's something that is a bit of a pain point for me based on other relationships in my life. Specifically being the eldest daughter and being the one who holds things together and follows through on things. The eldest daughter part of me was freaking out again, and she's waving all the warning signs. Here we go again. You're only going to end up being the only one who initiates, the only one who keeps the thread going, the only one who remembers all the details. She had a point. I am definitely that person, but she's also wrong because I'm not the only anymore. I have friends who initiate, keep the thread going, and remember details I miss. And the other thing she overlooked, I wasn't about to set up plans out of obligation. I was doing it by choice. I assured myself, we're not auditioning to be anyone's best friend. We're collecting more information and experiences to see what kind of connections are possible. Remember our intention. We want friends who are fun and easy to be around. If we freak out now, we won't be fun and easy to be around. If we freak out now, we cannot have fun. Things will not be easy. And if we ourselves are not fun and easy to be around, it is impossible for us to feel that way about anyone else. And this is where my friend theory that helps me manage expectations through the process of making friends also comes into play. The theory is, you get out of it what you put in, but you'll never know when it will be your turn to receive. Sometimes the effort you put into a person comes back from an entirely different person. Sometimes you plant seeds for months before anything sprouts and blooms. And sometimes you do the thing that scares you, like follow through and invite everyone to meet up for drinks on the weekend, and a whole new possibility opens up. That's why I stay open. I follow up not just because I want to receive effort from others, but because I want to model it. If I want friends who initiate plans, I practice being that friend. If I want people who send thoughtful memes and texts to check in, I go first. All the while, I ensure I'm not going beyond my capacity, because if I do end up giving more than I have, I'll be the one who's left feeling resentful. Making friends is only sustainable if you can give in a way that is sustainable. That way, you can let go of whether or not it comes back to you, and it keeps your entire process sustainable. I know that's easier said than done. It's definitely a challenge for the part of me that is a recovering perfectionist and overachiever, the eldest daughter part of me. But I know it's even harder to go through life without enjoyable friendships. So now, to really get that perfectionistic, overachieving, needs to be in control eldest daughter on board, instead of thinking, what if I always have to be the one to reach out? I ask myself, am I proud of how I showed up? And if the answer is yes, I trust that it was worth it, even if nothing else comes from it. And it's just my perception that nothing else comes from it as far as I can tell immediately following my action. I really don't know how it's going to come back to me. That's how I keep myself open to being surprised. That's how I stay in integrity with the kind of friend I want to be, and that's how I make it fun to make friends. Back to the conversation with these two ladies, though. I did end up suggesting that we meet for drinks on the weekend, and it happened. And then through them, I met another friend, and we've hung out a couple more times. And since then, I've also been to 4 more time left dinners. Now, not all of them were as good as the first one, but I did meet more cool people along the way. In fact, the second dinner was a little bit problematic for me because of one person, but I gave it another chance anyway. And at the third dinner, I met a friend who I have gotten boba with, played pickleball with, gone on a picnic with, seen a movie with, and went to a So Far Sounds with. That was like everything on my wish list. I'm really glad I didn't give in to my fears and anxiety or let any of my mind drama along the way stop me. I held true to my intention. And that's how I use an app to get dinner with 5 strangers on a Wednesday night, 5 times over the course of 5 months, and I didn't die. I actually met people I genuinely like, and now I have local friends who are fun and easy to be around, just as I intended, because I took actions aligned with my intention. So it sounds to me like taking my advice works. You can do this too. If you want help figuring out what your version of making friends looks like, come work with me. In coaching, we can turn this into your reality, from defining what kind of friends you want to playing to your strengths along the process. You'll know what actions to take, and I'll be there with you to guide and support as things come up for you. You can visit my website byjenniferho.com to book a free discovery call, and you can also find this link in the show notes. I will leave you with one last Jenniferism on making friends. Friendship isn't just about being chosen, it's about choosing. Now, I would love to hear how you've approached making friends as an adult, or how hearing my experience today gave you a nudge of courage to try. Send me a DM or leave a comment on this episode, and I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye!